We have our seniors then almost ready to go out on circuit for the second heat of the day here on day one of racing, round 3 of the Rotax Max Euro Challenge from Zuera in Spain. Hot sunny conditions, it's 28 degrees, but there is a stiff wind out there. There are long straights. This is the longest track that we visit on the calendar. It's the fastest track that we visit on the calendar. Slipstreaming has a big effect, particularly with the winds that we have today. We're fairly high up. It's fairly open here, so subject quite often to strong winds. There you can see the grid on the screen to remind you. Exactly the same grid for all 3 heats today based on qualifying. And so Jess Batman on pole position from Nicholas Scholl. Row 2, Lars Lambrell and Luc Ibanez. Row 3, Glenn Van Parish and Christopher Drayspring. Row 4, Berke Besler, the race 1 winner. And Ruud Buitendijk. And row 5, we've got Kay Van Berlo and Thomas Drouet to complete the top 10. Row 6, Josh White and Gary Donnelly. Row 7, Daniel Matuszek and last year's junior Euro champion Jack McCarthy, British champion as well. Row 8, Joel DePuch and Jordan Brown-Nutley, who stormed through to finish in second in that first race. Row 9, Ido Cohen and Adrian Renadan. Row 10, Noah Ruvers and Jonathan Hoggard. And Jonathan very quick in all of the sessions, but was one of the drivers that, in a bit of a lottery of a qualifying session, just couldn't get a lap in. Some drivers were delayed by an incident that happened, a crash that happened in qualifying. Other drivers just couldn't get a lap together because they were also late leaving and weren't able to get a clean run for whatever reason. Rather than getting 3 or 4 laps run at qualifying, really it was a 1-lap shootout, which gave us a bit of a mixed up grid. So Jonathan Hoggard also had a bad first race and has got some work to do. So Berke Besler, Jordan Brown-Nutley, Lars Lambrell, the top 3 in race 1. Nicholas Scholl was 4th, Glenn Van Parish was 5th, and Luc Ibanez came home in 6th place. After the race, there were penalties applied for front fairings not being in the correct position for Christopher Drayspring, Joel DePuch, Daniel Matuszek, and Josh Skelton. So they all had 5-second penalties applied to their race results, which dropped them right down the order. Christopher Drayspring, it dropped him out of the top 10 down to 17th place, and Christopher was one of the drivers finishing on the podium last time out in Italy. So they have to be careful with these new front bumper systems to avoid heavy contact, because if the bumper gets pushed in and then it's checked at scrutineering at the end of the races, these penalties can be applied. Not necessarily always. If the stewards review the footage, because there are cameras all around the circuit, they get replays, they can watch back as many times as they want, and if they feel that a driver has had the fairing pushed in but it wasn't really his fault or her fault, then they may be not given a penalty. But there have certainly been plenty dished out from that first set of heats, which has affected results quite drastically. So, having had a bit of a nightmare first race in the end, despite having good pace here, Jess Batman from pole position needs to try and get a victory here. She was running in the top 4 for much of the race. She led earlier on, but in the end she finished down in 23rd position classified. So 226, Jess Batman is your pole sitter. Nicholas Scholl alongside is the championship leader, looking for a good start from the difficult outside row. And then on the second row of the grid, Lars Lambrell made a good start last time. He starts in 3rd position. The lights go out. The race gets underway here then. Race 2 for the seniors. Jess Batman with a perfect start. Lars Lambrell in the blue race suit tucks in just behind her. Nicholas Scholl has dropped down to 4th place. I think Luc Ibanez has maybe slotted past. No, it would be Glenn Van Parish, I think, that's slotted past him. But Nicholas Scholl is still in there. He's still in the mix of the top 5, prepared to lose a couple of places. Jess Batman leads them through the hairpin for the first time in the race. 2nd position looks like it's still Lars Lambrell. Then it's the green helmet of Glenn Van Parish tucked in behind, running in 3rd place. And then into 4th position is Christopher Drayspring with a orange helmet, the orange and black colour scheme. Christopher Drayspring with a very good start, but maybe coming under far into the left-hander at turn 6 and losing a place. I think that's the Nicholas Scholl. So Nicholas gets one back. Christopher Drayspring, the German driver, demoted back down to 5th position as they come for the first time into the right-hander at turn 8. That leads directly into the left at turn 9, so it's an S-bend section effectively. And then flat out through the final turn at turn 10. You've got to get this absolutely right to make sure you get up to top speed and hit the ground running as you go down this very long start-finish straight. Top 3 go through then at the end of the first lap, and Berke Besler gaining a place towards the end of the lap as well to go 4th. We've got a challenge for the lead of the race, a successful challenge. Lambrell goes through ahead of Jess Batman. Jess now hugs the inside line down into turn 3 to make sure that she doesn't lose another place, this time to Glenn Van Parish. Berke Besler in fourth, Nicholas Scholl in fifth. Christopher Drayspring's dropped behind both of those drivers to be in sixth position. Luke Ibanez is in seventh. Josh White has come up to eighth. Thomas Drouet ninth. Kay Van Berlo rounding out the top 10 at the end of the first lap of the race. So good starts all round as we see another change of lead, and Jess Batman fights back down the inside at turn 6. Glenn Van Paris trying to get stuck in the action as well. Lars Lambrel trying to fend him off. They're all coming at them, and Berke Besler sneaks through down the inside to get himself up into second place now. The door's just opened for him, so he walked through untroubled and went from fourth to second. Lambrel third, Van Paris in fourth place, and everybody then behind them is a long train of karts in this lead group at the end of the second lap of the race. 10 or 11 of them strung together. Here they come over the start-finish line. A challenge for second place as Lambrel wants to get the position back into turn 1. He pulled out of the slipstream, then had to get off the line because Berke Besler had it covered, and he had to defend very hard then into turn 2 from Glenn Van Paris, who might just have a look down the inside at turn 3 for the hairpin, and he goes through. So Van Paris goes through. Bouvon Power drivers now second and third. His teammate Berke Besler is up the road in second place, and Nicholas Scholl came through as well at the hairpin to get ahead of Lars Lambrel. So it is now Jess Batman leading, Berke Besler second. A gap has developed after that infighting. Van Paris is third, Scholl is fourth. Lambrel, who briefly led this race a couple of minutes ago, is down in fifth place, and Luke Ibanez is just behind them in sixth place with a huge group of karts following the Spaniard. Jess Batman then leading the way and fighting back. I told you she was a gutsy driver. I knew she'd be able to come back from the disappointment of the earlier race. And certainly got good pace here. Berke Besler is a good man to have behind you because he's a calm driver, he's a smooth driver, and he's a fair driver. And Berke just looks like he's sat in an armchair as he goes over the start-finish line. He's so in control of the kart at the moment, and coming on leaps and bounds as we see a change for fourth place. Lambrel back down the inside of Nicholas Scholl, but then he goes deep into the corner, and Lambrel loses the place, and he might lose one to Luke Ibanez on the way into the hairpin. There's contact further back in that second group of karts. That was Lambrel, Ibanez, Josh White, Christopher Drayspring in that battle. At the head of the field, we got Bachmann still from Berke Besler. Then it's Van Paris, then it is Scholl. And who have we lost from that second group of karts? Josh White has lost a place down to 8th position, so he drops. It's Luke Ibanez that had the spin, I think, because he's dropped right down to the back of the field. So Josh White was delayed, but still going in 8th place. Luke Ibanez was the one that had the spin, and down to 22nd place for the Spaniard from 6th place. So Batman and Besler, your top 2 in the race. 3rd place for Van Paris with the greenish helmet. And then it's Nicholas Scholl, 4th. Lars Lambrel, 5th. Christopher Drayspring comes up to 6th. Thomas Drouet, 7th. Josh White, 8th. Jordan Brown Nutley, 9th, up into the top 10 again. Kay Van Berlo still in the top 10. As we see a change of lead at turn 1. Smoothly down the inside goes Berke Besler. And that was slipstreaming, and there was nothing Jess Batman could do about that. He's hitting the rush of air. Berke doesn't get any of that, tucks in behind. It's worth 2 or 3 tenths going into turn 1, and it's almost like you've got another gear then, even though they're direct drive karts. And down through into turn 1 went Berke Besler. 3rd and 4th not far behind either. There's a big gap back then to Lars Lambrel in 5th place. 6th, 7th and 8th are all together, and Josh White goes to the head of that group. Up into 6th place he goes with a good move. Thomas Drouet tucks in behind him with the blue suit and the orange helmet to make sure he stays in 8th. And Jordan Brown Nutley had this fantastic drive in the first race. He's in the mix again as well. So a good little ding-dong going on there between those 3 drivers. Thomas Drouet is going to lose a place going into turn 7 as Jordan Brown Nutley gets down the inside of him to get himself 7th now. So this is another strong drive from Jordan Brown Nutley. And remember, he said he struggled to get through the pack for the first couple of laps in the first race, but then he just started picking them off one by one and stormed through to second place and actually started to close down the leader for the last lap and a half as well. Berke Besler was the winner of race 1. He leads race 2. The pole sitter, Jess Batman, staying with him in second place. Glenn Van Paris and Nicholas Scholl catching them though, 3rd and 4th. Down into the hairpin. They are now together, the lead quartet. Lars Lambrel is lonely in 5th. Josh White 6th. And Jordan Brown Nutley in 7th place. And that might have swapped around. Coming out the hairpin, it's the other way around. Jordan Brown Nutley arrives at turn 4 first. So he goes 6th. Josh White goes 7th. Thomas Drouet still with them in 8th place as we see the leaders now into turn 6 with Berke Besler just stretching away now from Jess Batman, who's coming under more and more pressure from Glenn Van Paris. Nicholas Scholl is watching everything going on from just behind in 4th place. The Turkish driver leads, the Swedish driver is 2nd, the Belgian 3rd, and in 4th place the Austrian driver as they weave their way once again into turn 10. We're at 2/3 race distance then. 6 laps are about to be completed. There's another 3 to go in this fascinating race. Berke Besler tucks himself down, leans forward, makes himself as aerodynamic as he can at the head of the group. Jess Batman is very good on the brakes into turn 2, so there is no opportunity for Glen Van Paris to get through, and he stays in 3rd. Remember, Jess is a championship front runner. She's 4th in the standings here coming into this weekend, behind Nicola Scholl, Gary Donnelly and Rinus van Kalmthout. Gary Donnelly, by the way, 2nd in the championship, is in 14th place at the moment in the race. Rinus van Kalmthout is just with him in that mid-group as well in 13th place. As here we see the lead quartet coming towards us. Is Lars Lambrell catching them up maybe a little bit in 5th place? Certainly on the same pace as them. They start to fight each other. Lars might just join the party the last lap of the race. There go the top 4. Lambrell just off them, a 2.5 back in 5th place. So no changes at the head of the field on this lap for very experienced drivers in that lead quartet. For very quick drivers as well, making their way through. Nicola Scholl with the points lead, knowing that, you know, he just needs a good grid for the race tomorrow. You don't get any championship points for winning the heats. You just get an accumulation of results that set your grid for the pre-final tomorrow. So Nicholas, a smart enough driver to know when and when not to take pick his fights, as we see a move now for 2nd place. Good move that from Glen Van Paris, under braking down the inside of the hairpin. He pulled out at the last millisecond. Jess Batman gave him room, and that was a good, clean, fair pass. So very good driving from these two. The Belgian, though, going ahead of the Swede. Nicola Scholl much closer to them now in 4th position. Lambrell and Jordan Brown-Nutley are next up, 5th and 6th, as Jess Batman goes back down the inside at turn 6, covers the line off into turn 7, and she retains, or gets back into 2nd place then. Glen Van Paris 3rd, Nicola Scholl itching to get involved, but also cautious of the fact that 4th place is better than a DNF, and all the time Lars Lambrell is catching them up in 5th place, but we're beginning to run out of time now. Another very good drive from Jordan Brown-Nutley, quick enough, he reckoned, that he got the lap together in qualifying, had he not been delayed by the crash in Sector 1 to have been 3rd on the grid. And you can see that, can't you, by the way he's charged through the order in these races. So for the final time, into turn 2 they go. Berke Besler on course for his 2nd win of the day. He can't stop winning here in these last couple of weekends. But Jess Batman is fought hard here for 2nd place. Nicola Scholl now coming out of the hairpin, draws alongside Glen Van Paris for 3rd place, but Glen has got the inside into turn number 4 and holds the position. And Lars Lambrell is absolutely reeling them in on this last lap of the race. He's almost with that trio now. It's almost 4 battling for 2nd place as they hold each other up, and he just gets on with the business of driving quick lap times. No change. Still Batman 2nd, 3rd for Van Paris, 4th place for Scholl. Lambrell in 5th position. Anybody going to have a go here? There's not really much opportunity through the last few corners of the lap. But if you get a good run coming out of the last turn, you might just pip somebody over the start-finish line. So we could see a very close finish here, but not up front, because Berke Besler, perfect job once again. Flawless drive. 2nd win of the day for Berke Besler. 2nd place, a really good drive by Jess Batman. 3rd place over the line is Glen Van Paris. Nicola Scholl holds 4th. Lars Lambrell got very close to him over the line. 0.5 of a second between them, but it's 5th for Lambrell. 6th place for Brown-Nutley. Thomas Drewy in 7th, Josh White 8th. Another super drive from Denis Mavlanov from the back of the field up to 9th place this time. Mavlanov had a good drive from the back of the field to 11th in race number 1, so he is, if he keeps this up, going to feature tomorrow and get a reasonable grid for the pre-final. Jonathan Hargaard, much better this time. He gains 10 places to go up to 10th place. Joel de Puch just outside the top 10, gained a few, and Christopher Drayspring, who was in the top 6 for much of that race, ended up down in 12th place, just ahead of Gary Donnelly, who was 13th. They're the results on screen. Move on power with drivers 1st and 3rd, Besler and Van Paris. Jess Batman for Dams Racing in between them. Nicola Scholl for Strawberry 4th. And then 2 Dan Holland Racing drivers, Lars Lambrell and Jordan Brown-Nutley, to complete the top 6. Kay Van Berlo dropped down the order a little bit as well. Kay was in the top 10 for much of that race, dropping down, I'm afraid, to 19th place by the end of the race, as you see the rest of the results on screen. And Moulin Baptiste, the only driver not to finish the 2nd qualifying heat for the seniors. So 2 races, 2 wins for Berke Besler. He's looking good with 1 more race to go to be challenging for pole position for tomorrow.